Hello, everyone. Kelly here today to talk to you a little bit about writing great college essays using ChatGPT. So, this is a little bit of a controversial subject, and it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. So, I've got a little bit of intro material, and then I'm going to jump right into a demo. I'm going to write an essay using chat, and I want to talk about some of the ethical issues and things along the way. I'm going to start with a little bit of an overview and some quick ethical considerations. The first is, what is ChatGPT? ChatGPT is it's a learning language model, and it is something that has taken the world by storm over the last just a few months. It's something that a lot of us are playing with. You're seeing Sam Altman and others testifying in front of Congress about the dangers of AI. Everyone's talking about it. It is doing way more than anyone thought that it could. But what it is it's a language prediction model. So it basically takes thousands and thousands of pieces of text, probably millions, and predicts what's going to come next. So think about like auto text, right? Think about when you're writing an email or sending a text, and your phone automatically predicts what words you're going to say next. That's what it is. So it's not doing its own thinking, it's predicting the next words, and it's gotten really, really good at doing it. Now, the next big question is going to be, isn't this cheating? And as I do my demo, as I walk you through writing an essay with ChatGPT, you're going to think to yourself, wow, this is too easy. This is cheating. And I will say that there are going to be some folks who do think that this is cheating. And I'm going to address those concerns as we go through the video. But I like to equate ChatGPT and other LLMs. Microsoft Bing has bought ChatGPT. They have their own model. Bard in Google is another model. Others are coming online all the time. I prefer the original ChatGPT, and I'll talk a little bit about why I've been playing with all of them. But it's like a calculator. So if you don't see using a calculator in math as cheating, then I don't really see ChatGPT as cheating. And many of us grew up, and I certainly did in those days when, we had teachers say, well, you're not going to just be walking around through life with a calculator in your pocket. Yeah, I am. And I have ChatGPT on here as well as so many other apps. So ChatGPT is basically the calculator for writing. That's how I see it. And I'll talk about that more as we go, but I do want to get right to this demo, so I will just add a couple more things to remember as we go. Number one, LLMs don't do the thinking for you. It's a language predictor, like a calculator. It does some of the calculating and it does a lot of the polishing work, but ultimately the thinking will be upon you. And again, that'll come up through the demo. The next thing, you will need citations. We're writing a college essay, folks, and if you write it, you must cite it. All factual information that is not common general knowledge must be cited, and Chat is not going to do that for you. Now, Microsoft Bing's version of Chat will add citations, but it will do an absolutely horrendous job that cannot be depended upon at this time. So you will need to do your own thinking, and you'll need to add your own citations. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Finally, and I am going to talk a little bit about Turnitin. If you are at a school that uses Turnitin, some are still using SafeAssign. Most of us are using Turnitin at most of the schools that we're at. There is a AI detector. And so we will need to continue to think about is this cheating? Think about those big questions. But I will always go back to something that I think about often. Here's this amazing piece of technology that is going to change the entire world. For some elite group of people to come along and say, well, this technology is too good. It's too nice. We can't give it to you people because you wouldn't know what to do with it. That's what the oppressors say, folks. And we are not going to be oppressors. We are going to be liberators. And that's what ChatGPT does, is it liberates elite academic language, writing, and speech, and it gives it to everyone. And so I'm really excited to share that all with all of you. So let's get started. So you are now seeing my screen. This is how I like to work at home. I like to have the internet open on one side of my screen, and I like to have my paper open on the other side of my screen. I have ChatGPT fired up and ready to go. And I have a 7th edition APA template ready to go. For those of you who are in my classes, you know that I generally prefer APA over MLA. It is what most professionals are using in most fields of study these days. And I love how it lets us stay organized and focused while we're writing. That's something that I've always struggled with myself in my writing, is organization and focus. And so I'm going to be talking a little bit about some writing strategies as we go. And I think a lot of that starts with APA. So the very first thing that I'm going to use ChatGPT for is I'm going to ask it to help me with some topic ideas. It has many, many purposes, folks. And this is why I think that that line about whether or not it's cheating is going to become more and more blurred, is because we can use it for so many different things. The first is brainstorming topics. So let me say, give me some great project, let's say college essay topics. I always say please, and I think that's really silly that I do that. I use formality and kindness for my robot overlords, but there is a study that found that how you input language into chat will determine how it outputs information. So I always add a little layer of formality and kindness to it, and maybe that might do something. Okay, so it gave me 15 possible topics. Now, I personally like to do a lot of my brainstorming myself, but sometimes you're like, oh, well, I think I want to talk a little bit about this, but I don't know exactly what I want to say. You can also have it give you a more focused topic as well. So let me just skim through these, see if anything jumps out at me. Okay. Diversity, inclusion, a problem I'm passionate about, a career goal, the role of technology, I'm thinking about that. Ethics, I'm thinking about that. What if I'm like, oh, I don't really like any of those? I can regenerate a response, or I could say, how about some more fun and creative topics? I can ask it a follow-up question. So I can ask it to maybe give me some different ones. Let's see. These are not particularly academic. How about some that are creative and academic? Now, let's say that your teacher says, well, you have to write about XYZ. You can ask it, you could say, give me 10 college essay topics about XYZ, and it will help to provide those. Let's see. I could do a person. About something argumentative about social media. And now I'm going to start kind of feeding it some ideas, because I kind of want to talk a little bit about social media. I choose this one because it's the most popular topic right now. I get more essays on social media than I ever do before. Used to be on legalization of marijuana, but these days social media is the one. Okay, this is interesting. I got 5 topics on the positive influence of social media and 5 on the negative. Okay, so I'm really interested in some of these ideas. You know, I have now dozens and dozens of topics that I can comb through and look at and choose what I want and kind of narrow things down a little bit. So let me go with, I'm going to go with mental health and well-being. And again, this is one that I'm seeing a lot, and I'm really liking that I'm kind of already seeing a thesis built into this. So I'm going to run with number 1, and I'm going to build an essay out of this. So I'm going to go over to my APA template, and I'm going to do the negative influence of social media. And I'm going to copy that and then jump right down to my page 2. If you're in one of my classes, you should have this template already provided for you. And so a lot of this should be filled in, including with the page numbers. And now I need to build my essay. And I want to do that with, I need a good attention getter at the start. I need a good thesis statement. And this is why I love APA, folks, is I use these bold centered labels as my headers. So I'm going to go ahead and take this sentence and I'm just going to steal it and use it as my thesis. And I am going to do that, and I'm going to use that sentence as the last sentence of my intro, and I'm going to use that as the very first sentence of my conclusion. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Kelly, that's way too easy. That's stealing. You can't possibly use that. That's going to be plagiarism. To which I say, who am I plagiarizing off of? I'm not plagiarizing off of a person. I'm taking content that the robot produced for me based on my inputs and using that. So who owns that content? Now, I've been teaching college English now for over 15 years, and I have busted hundreds of plagiarizers and made them redo their work. I'm not one of those let's send it up to the front office kind of folks, at least not anymore, certainly. But with plagiarism, you're copying someone else's words, someone else's content, and passing it off as your own. To me, this content was generated based off inputs that I put in and outputs that I take out. So in my opinion, and this is not going to be the opinion of all your teachers, folks, this content belongs to me. Again, not going to be the opinion of everyone. And if anyone has followed the massive turmoil about AI art and who the AI art belongs to, this is another really big conversation that we have. But in my opinion, as I said, the content belongs to me, so I'm going to use it. So this, I think, ends up being a good thesis statement. And the reason why I think it's a good thesis statement is because it is giving me my main points. Excessive use of social media contributes to feelings of loneliness. There's a main point. Depression, there's a main point. Anxiety is a main point. And self-esteem and body image. And I could say that these are points 3 and 4. I always say a good thesis is following that formula. Topic A, B, and C, or topic X, Y, and Z is important because of A, B, and C. And that's what this does, is it tells me what the essay is about, and it gives me key points that I can use to support that essay. So what I'm going to do after I have my thesis is now I'm going to build my headers. Feelings of loneliness, depression, anxiety, and self-esteem and body image. So I can actually use these, and I'll come back in with my conclusion, as my labels. And that's going to help out a bunch with my organization and how I kind of put things together overall. Now, I will say this, folks, and this is something that you're going to want to take a note of as you're writing. It's not always so easy as it's giving you all of these key points. I did have to kind of finesse a little bit and ask it for a bunch of different topics before I got these kind of better thesis statements. And you'll see here, each of them has 3 points. But I will also add that oftentimes the key points, the thesis statements that it gives you are not always ideal. So let me look at this one more time, right? I said, oh, that's so easy. Let me grab it. Let me put it in. But let me look at it again. Okay, feelings of loneliness, depression, anxiety, self-esteem, and body image. Now, as I'm writing an essay, I want to be thinking, am I going from least important to most important or least complex to most complex? And am I going to be building a case that makes the most sense? So as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking that if I talk about loneliness, then depression, then anxiety, then self-esteem and body issue, I feel like this is a little bit out of place in terms of building a case from least important to most important or least complex to most complex. So the robot is helping me out a ton by giving me a sample thesis statement, by helping me out with a possible topic. But ultimately, I need to step back and look at these key points and say, okay, but do they really make sense? Are they going to be telling the story that I'm going to be trying to tell? So I'm going to make a couple little tweaks real quick. I'm going to get rid of feelings of loneliness. And I'm actually just going to swap out loneliness for lowering self-esteem and body issue. And that means that I'm going to need to change my thesis statement around as well. Depression and anxiety. And I'm not going to fuss too much when I see red and green squiggly lines pop up on my screen, or blue as they are now. I will fix all of that stuff later. And now I'm just going to swap my thesis statement out in both places. And I want to repeat, I like my thesis statement to be the last sentence of the intro and the first sentence of the conclusion. And I'm going to use the exact same words. And so you might have a lot of English teachers who say, Kelly, you can't do that. That's not a thing to do. As someone who wrote a doctoral dissertation and copied and pasted their thesis problem and research questions over and over and over again through 100 pages of work, it's something that we do. We continuously reinforce our thesis by using the same language. So some of your teachers might not like that, in which case you could ask chat to rewrite it. You could say, hey, could you rewrite this in slightly different words? And then you put the statement in and it rewrites it for you. This is going to be, and there it is. And I can copy that, I can paste it in, and I could use that as a different thesis statement. Now, me personally, if you're in one of my classes, use the same words. I don't care. But if you've got a teacher who just is a nitpicker about it, you can use this little hack. But this little hack here, could you rewrite this in slightly different words, is a much more important hack than we often realize. This is going to be another big problem with people who want to say that this is cheating, or that the words or the content that chat produces don't belong to the student. It's going to be another big problem when flags go up on turnitin.com and it says a robot wrote it. I work with and have worked with thousands of students to write college essays over the last 15 years. And many of those students have been coming to class with English being a second language or third or fourth language. I have worked with many students who had very poor or low literacy rates, coming out of, I hate to say it, Detroit and Flint public schools, not always the best training grounds for a life in college and academia. And this has changed my life, and I see it changing all of their lives, because you can take a paragraph, a sentence, an email, a cover letter, a resume, and anything that you write, some content for your website or your shipped or anything, and you can ask chat to just rewrite it for you, and it does it beautifully. You can add stipulations. You could say, could you rewrite this in third person point of view? As college teachers, right? We hate first and second person point of view. There is no I, me, my, we, us, our, you, or your in academic level work. So anything that you write, you can ask chat to rewrite it more professionally for you. And I'll do that often. I'll say, could you write this more professionally? Drop a page or a paragraph or a sentence of text in, and it just transforms it into something beautiful. Again, folks, this technology is truly limitless. And though people might be fighting it right now, it will be just built seamlessly in to our day-to-day workflow within the next decade. And I hate to be one to predict the future. I don't believe in predicting the future. Anyone who predicts the future, we should be very skeptical of. But as someone who has played with this technology for the last 6 months, this is absolutely transformative. It is going to change our world. It is changing our world. So if you are someone who's had issues with where commas go, or if you're someone who has issues with writing English as a second language, English is not your first language. And of course, other countries are coming out with their versions. I see China just released theirs as well. This eliminates those obstacles, just eliminates them for everyone. Now everyone can write at a specific level. It does more than that, actually. You could say, could you now write it like Snoop Dogg? You could ask it to write it like other people, and it will do that. And so there's some more conversations about art that we will have. But here we go. This is terrible. Check it out. When you go overboard with the social media grind, it can mess with your head, dog. It's been known to bring down your self-esteem, mess with your body image, and even leave you feeling straight up depressed and anxious. That's why you got to keep it real and find that balance, homie. So chat will actually imitate other people's voices. And they've even found, like, if someone has like a Twitter handle, like you could ask it to talk like at Elon Musk, and it will do that. There's a well-known DJ, David Guetta, had chat write a rap in the style of Eminem about AI, and then he used a deep fake website, another website using deep fake, that's a different conversation too, to imitate Eminem's voice. And so he basically had Eminem perform a song, AI Eminem perform a song that AI wrote in Eminem's voice. It is that crazy. I'm going to sidebar here and also say that this has some really great repercussions for those of you who are struggling with studying. You could take a paragraph that you're reading in an ebook and you could ask it to like dumb it down and write it like, could you explain, or take any topic, could you explain this like you would explain it to a 10-year-old? And it will write it with analogies and with an explanation as if it were to a 10-year-old, someone, and it'll write it in this very simple and basic language. So the sky really does become the limit when we're talking about this incredible technology. Okay, let's get back to the essay. So we are going to use ChatGPT for more than just brainstorming and getting a thesis going. We're actually going to use it to generate content as well. Now, here's where things do really start to get sticky, because again, as I was saying before, some people do view this as cheating. I personally do not. I see this as the natural progression and way of the future, but this is something that you are going to want to be cautious of, because again, Turnitin.com has released a tool that shows, and right now, as of me releasing this video, it only shows the instructors, not the students, which I also think is wrong. I also think that's oppressive, but it shows the instructors how much of the essay they predict has been written or generated by AI. So if you are writing this essay for a class where the essay is automatically going to go through Turnitin, then that is going to be something to be cautious of. It doesn't hurt to talk to your instructors about it. Most of us now are working in policies that are going to go in our syllabi for the fall that'll say, what we think is acceptable or not. But I'm also seeing schools releasing different policies on what is acceptable. So just kind of a heads up. All right, now let's generate some content. Okay, so let me take my new thesis statement and say, I would like help writing an essay. Could you give me example paragraphs for this thesis? I could do this. I could do it a number of different ways. I could break it down paragraph by paragraph. I could do a few different things, but I'm just going to start with this and get to where I get. Okay, let's see. Intro, mental health. Okay, so I have these paragraphs. They're just okay. Nothing super specific. Uh, intro. So technically, I could take all of this. This is kind of an intro, and I could drop it in for my intro paragraph. I think that this is probably super excessive. If you know me, you know that I like my intro to just be an attention getter and a thesis statement. So to me, this is a lot, but I wanted to do this because I wanted to point out a few things that people who are starting to get into ChatGPT and notice it are going to be looking at. The first, as I mentioned, there's no I, me, my, we, us, our, you, or your in academic level work. So as I'm looking through this, I will notice that this essay or the sample intro, excuse me, is very self-referential. Through this exploration, we will shed light on the detrimental impact. We will delve into the harmful consequences. Additionally, we will explore the link. So you'll see that we a lot. That's something that we automatically see a lot with ChatGPT, and I would say avoid that. Now, let me ask it also to do, could you say all of that in 3 to 5 sentences? I can ask it to consolidate text down. Now, this is also a really great tool for those of us who write way too much. I do tend to write a single page introduction and then I have to scale it way back. It will do that for me. But you'll see these trademarks, these kind of hallmarks of ChatGPT, where if you have an instructor who's super against it, they'll start to notice this and flag this. This essay explores the link. That's not something we usually like to say. We, again, it will say we. So we're going to just kind of avoid language like that. And I would be cautious and say, hey, watch out for doing that. Let's, though, break this down. And I'm going to use the outline format in chat, which I really, really like. Could you give me some bullet points on how social media lowers self-esteem and harms body image? Now, one of the things that I really love about chat is its ability to put things into just really neat, simple bullet points. And so if you ask it to give you bullet points, you'll get some really, really great content here. Now I could say, could you, and I've got a spelling error in here, but it's not going to matter. Could you rewrite that in paragraph form? Now it's going to take my bullet points. It's going to rewrite it as paragraph. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and take that paragraph and I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to go ahead and paste it into my essay. Again, this is where the danger is. This is where people start to think, well, hey, that's going to be cheating. Now, I'm not just going to leave this paragraph. I'm going to have to come back in and I'm going to have to do a few things. I'm going to need to read it. I'm going to need to organize it. I'm probably going to break it up into 2 to 3 paragraphs. And most importantly, if you write it, you must cite it. I'm going to have to come in and add citations for all factual information. So I'm not just going to be able to leave this information by itself, but I am just going to go right ahead and use that content. How about a paragraph with lots of facts, data, and statistics on how social media causes depression? This is another great hack that I like to use. I like to ask it for a paragraph with facts, data, and statistics. When I do that, it's going to pull information from the internet and include that into the paragraph. Now, the problem, and this is kind of a ChatGPT thing, I'm using the free ChatGPT 3 version. It's totally free. I don't have to pay for anything. I'm subscribed, of course. You'll want to subscribe, but it doesn't have the most up-to-date information. But there is more up-to-date information if you use the Bing version of ChatGPT. I just find that it's not as smart. It doesn't return as good text and information. So you will get slightly more up-to-date information, as I said, but the information, it just won't be written as well or as clearly. Now, I will say that the Turnitin.com chat GPT, whether or not a robot has written it, identifier is trained on this chat, not the Bing version. But you could take a paragraph from this version, feed it into Bing, ask Bing to rewrite it, or vice versa. You can use multiple robots in different ways. So here I have another paragraph. Let me do another one. Same question for anxiety. I want facts and statistics and data. And here's a paragraph that I could use. And again, and there's a little warning here. As mentioned before, the specific facts, data, and statistics provided in this paragraph are for illustrative purposes and not based on real studies. And they are not based on real studies, folks. Be sure to conduct thorough research and cite reliable sources to support the claims you make in your essay. I'm using this as a foundation, but I'm absolutely going to need to come back in and make necessary corrections. All right. And since I'm doing this as an argumentative, I might say, how about an opposing viewpoints paragraph with the positives of social media? Since I'm using APA, I'm going to just build in a header here. Help me stay organized and focused. And there we are. I'm not even really reading this content yet. I am certainly going to be coming back and combing through all of it. But for now, I have a pretty good rough draft. So I know I did a lot of talking before I jumped into this kind of demo of making the paragraphs, but in just a matter of a few minutes, I now have my almost 3 pages of content. And I can keep adding. I could say, how about a paragraph on the history of social media? Maybe I'm writing a longer essay and I want a little history section. There are so many things that I can do here. This is pretty true, actually. But again, I'm going to need to go in and I'm going to need to cite all of this information. Now, one thing that you're going to note here is that my intro and my conclusion are just a thesis statement. And the reason that I have done it this way and that I didn't bother to take all of the intro content that chat gave me is, and maybe this is just me as a nitpicky English teacher, I cannot stand a super long introduction. And a big part of that is because I'm so guilty of spending my whole life writing super long introductions. My preference would be that you just have an attention getter at the beginning and a thesis. But instead of worrying about the attention getter, I'm going to let the attention getter come to me. And what I mean by that is I'm going to want an interesting quote, fact, or statistic that's going to grab people and get them to read my essay. But I'm not going to worry about that right away. I'm going to worry about that later. There's this kind of belief, and you'll hear English teachers talk about this. They'll say, well, you have to start at the start and end at the end. If you want to write a great essay, you have to have a perfect intro before you can even start writing the body. Well, that doesn't even make any sense, because how can you introduce something when you haven't even written the essay yet? Like, to me, writing the intro and conclusion, those are just like bookends. That's a formality. Like, the meat is in the middle, it's the body. So I tend now to work body out so that I don't spend 5 days writing a 2-page long introduction that I have to throw away and then never actually put the time and effort into the body, which is the most important part of the essay. So that's kind of how I like to write. How you want to write is up to you. But of course, you can see, I hope, right, that this has just allowed us to write pages and pages of content. And to me, this content belongs to you. But the facts do not necessarily belong to you. And this is where we need to add the citations. Now, please, folks, please do not stop here and say, okay, I've got it. Now I'm ready to write a college essay. This is not the end. The last step in this does need to be finding all the factual information and adding citations. So I'm going to comb through this and I'm going to just do some examples of that, just so you can kind of watch the process and so you can see exactly how to add those finishing touches. I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. If you write it, you must cite it. If you write it, you must cite it. All factual information that is not common general knowledge needs to have a citation. So despite the fact that I was around in the 1990s and remember 6 degrees and one that's not mentioned here, LiveJournal. We all had LiveJournal. I remember some of this stuff, but this is not common general knowledge. A lot of people, they might remember Facebook or MySpace, but a lot of people don't know the exact dates. I had one student write an essay and it was like, can you imagine life without social media? I'm like, yeah, dude, how long has social media been around? Not as long as me, I'm afraid. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go to my Google machine. And sure, I could go to my local college library or whatnot, but I'm just going to go to Google and use it because it's very easy. And let's do the history of social media. Now I need to find articles and sources that validate the information in my essay. And if I can't find them, that's because they might not exist. That large language model, that LLM, ChatGPT that I was using, is not necessarily always accurate. It's been proven to be wrong many, many times. It's predicting language, but it is not a fact machine. Now, as tools like Google and Microsoft you start merging their chatbots with their search engines, it will get a lot smarter, but it's not there yet. So I want to find a source that has a pretty reliable history of social media. And I'm going to go right to scholarly articles for history of social media. And the reason I'm going to do this is actually a really nice hack for many of us. This is using Google Scholar. It's scholar.google.com. And this reports back only scholarly sources, which your instructors are going to eat up. They're going to love it. They're going to be very angry if you use Wikipedia, despite I love Wikipedia, but your other instructors do not. But Google Scholar are usually going to be pretty reliable. I'm going to click since 2019 for two reasons. Number one, if a source is more than 5 years old, it's probably too old. And number two is that since 2019, there's been a really big push to get articles and information out on the internet for free. There are many people who agree with me that we don't keep knowledge away from people because they wouldn't understand it, because again, that's what oppressors say. So when we click since 2019, we get more recent relevant information, and we also get we also get a greater likelihood of the source being free. That's what you're seeing in this right-hand margin here. These things are going to be free. I'm going to be able to click on these links and get free sources. Okay, so I have in 2019, social media and platform historiography, challenges and opportunities. So I want to click on that. And I want to see if it has the same information as my intro paragraph included. I'm going to click out here on PDF and not here. If I click here, I could hit a pay gate. I don't want that. But if I click on PDF, I should get access to the article. There it is. And so I'm just going to quickly look for some of the things that I mentioned in my history paragraph. I'm going to say, is 6 degrees in here? No, it is not. Is MySpace in here? No, it is not. Let me just do a quick check. Is Facebook in here? Okay, yes, it is. Is Twitter in here? Many times. And is Snapchat in here? It is in there. Okay. So it is not going to give me information on my first couple sentences, but I do have information on my last few. And I also want to see what that timeline looked like. It's all kinds of stuff. Has an interesting timeline, users. It's got some good data. It's a pretty solid source. It's a scholarly source. And I'm thinking I could probably use this to at least talk a little bit about Facebook. Now, here's why I love Google Scholar. Google Scholar has one of the best auto citation generators around. So maybe you use Citation Machine or BitMe or NightSite or anything like that. But if you go to Google Scholar and you see the quotation marks where it says cite, you're going to get a pretty solid citation. So I'm going to take my APA, I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to start building up my references page. Now, it's not going to be exactly perfect. I've got a volume and issue number here, but I'm missing a DOI number and I'm missing page numbers. So I'm going to go back to my source. I see that I've got page numbers 6 through 34. I need to add those in. And then I also want to see if I have a DOI number. That stands for Digital Object Identifier. It's like an ISBN number at the library. And I'm not seeing it here. Let me see if I can find it on the main page. And there it is, right there. So I am going to have to make a couple little adjustments if I want my citations to be perfect. I'm also going to make them Arial 11 or Times New Roman 12. What am I using in the rest of my paper? Oh, Times New Roman 12. Either is acceptable, but this is the gold standard is Times New Roman 12. The old school teachers only know Times New Roman 12. So we'll do that. I also need to set a hanging indent. I'm going to do that by clicking here and opening up the paragraph menu, or I'm going to click here and I'm going to open up the paragraph menu here. I do have another video if you're using Google Docs. and I need to set it to hanging. And then it's going to change it like this. And you'll see when I have a ton of sources, it'll make it much easier. But the first line is all the way off to the left, and then every other line after that is indented. It makes it easier to find. So then my in-text citation for this one is going to be Helmand and Van der List 2019. And I know this because I've done this a million times, but I'll give you another great resource here in a minute. My formatting looks good. And now at the end of every sentence that can be validated and verified by this article, I am going to include that in-text citation. So I'm going to put it here. I'm going to put it here. Again, I'm putting it at the end of every single sentence that contains a fact. In this way, I am able to review the content that I got from chat and then also verify it. So again, I really like to use Google Scholar to do this because it looks a little bit better and teachers really like it. Let me add one for 6 degrees because I want to include that. The rise of social media. See if I have access to this. Okay, it was mentioned here. So this source here is also helpful. And I can add my in-text citation for Oritz Espina. Now, this is going to be the most time-consuming part of your paper writing process, but better than figuring out where all the commas go, am I right? Now, again, some students don't like to do this, right? Where you're just taking the content and verifying it and adding sources. For a lot of you, you're more comfortable just writing the paragraphs on your own. That's absolutely acceptable. Please do that. But you can then take the paragraph and ask chat to write it more professionally or to clean up the grammar or to kind of fix it up. So you can ask it to add those little things. Just go back and get my citation. It's too easy here. Oh. But the world is very much changing. Now I want this to be in alphabetical order. Oh, my font didn't change. That's why I was having issues. All right. And because it is a web source, if I don't have a DOI number, then I still want to use a URL. Okay, and now I have 2 sources of however many my instructor has asked me to include. And now I'm just going to go from paragraph to paragraph, continuing to add in my citations, continuing to check my facts, make sure that I'm saying what I want to be saying. And in this editing process, folks, you're going to be taking stuff out. You're going to be adding stuff in. You're going to notice, like, as I'm looking through this paragraph, this is mostly fluff. Like, I want to know about the very specific, I want to know about anorexia and bulimia and body dysmorphic disorder that comes with, overly using social media. I want to know about the statistics that Facebook has released showing that they know darn well how Instagram and Facebook lower teens' self esteem and body image. And I want to know about how they cause people to commit suicide and so much worse. So this is the beginning, and I've got these journals because I had asked it to give me specific facts and statistics. These studies probably cannot be found. Like, it made these studies up. So I'm probably going to have to pull that stuff out and add new stuff in. I'm also finding shocking statistics as I'm looking here. So this information right here, this is maybe the attention getter that I've been looking for. And this is where, things get kind of crazy, is I can say, copy this. And instead of me doing the paraphrasing work, and this is really going to drive a lot of teachers crazy, I could say, could you rewrite this more professionally? And I could give it the quote and it's going to rewrite it for me. And then, do I own that? Well, yeah, because I asked for it, but I still have to cite my source. So I'm going to use it in my paragraph, but I also have to say that that information is not mine. It belongs to Oritz Aspina. So at the end of those sentences, I'm going to say where that content came from, because it does not belong to me. Then I could say, could you, I could just regenerate response. And you'll remember with my intro and conclusion, I just want it to be an attention getter at the beginning and then a thesis. And then for the conclusion, I want it to be the thesis and then going back to the attention getter. Now, again, folks, this is not perfect. I still have a lot more work to do. I still have more citing sources to do. I still have more editing to do. This is not where I need it to be before I turn it in to me, my instructor. But when I'm thinking about the fact that before I got started on this, I had no pages, and now I have 5 pages of content, well, gosh darn it, I am off to a really, really great start. So this is how to use ChatGPT to write great college essays. We're going to use it for brainstorming. We're going to use it for outlining and thesis writing. We're going to use it to generate content. And we're going to use it to actually build our paragraphs, to paraphrase information, and to kind of put it all together. But we cannot stop there. We have to validate all information. We have to cite all of our sources, and we have to turn on our brains and put it all together. I hope that this has been very helpful for everyone. Let me know if you have any questions.